Well, the Pokemon series, well, it has its fair share of creepy moments, however which I'm planning on talking about in today's video. So, let's get into it. So, of course, the Pokemon series is, well, very infamous for having some really creepy parts. Now, I've done my top 10 creepy places in Pokemon. Well, I mean, honestly, more of a top 10. Maybe even, there might be more stuff. I honestly don't know. But of course, well, what I do know is that there's a lot of creepy places within Pokemon that, well, generally were pretty interesting. And of course, I do want to talk about them. So, of course, do keep in mind this does contain spoilers for the following games: Fire and Leaf Green, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum in the remakes, Red and Blue, and Fire and Leaf Green, and of course Pokemon X and Y, and also part of the Pokemon anime. I know, it's shocking that I'm even talking about the Pokemon anime, but it makes sense to. So, of course, my number 5 pick is, of course, Ghost of Maiden's Peak. So, this was an episode from Indigo League, the first season of the Pokemon anime, and, well, this was a pretty interesting episode. So, the plot synopsis of this one is that Ash, Brock, and Misty are, of course, they pass through a town, and this town has a rumor, and there's this one woman who turned to stone after waiting for her husband for so long, and of course, it is. If I recall correctly, I think the town was believed to have been haunted or something, but that's beside the point. So, if I recall correctly, I think Ash and Misty originally read it off as just kind of some random urban legend, but Brock seems to be attached to the story, which I don't blame him, because, I mean, who does not like urban legends? I mean, I've known plenty around the town I live in. And the same thing also happens to James. And eventually it is found out that, well, it gets found out that there's something much more to the story than they were originally led on to. And of course, well, there's a ghost Pokemon that, if I recall correctly, I think is haunting the statue and was trying to lure Brock and James to their deaths. And so it was an interesting episode, but this was really one of the first episodes of the series. I mean, not really one of the first ones, but this was still early in the series runtime. So it's generally really interesting to see how they did this with the anime. And and of course, going back to that, being able to see stuff, like this was pretty cool, and it definitely made it one of the best episodes of the series. And of course, Pokemon would also flirt with more creepy episodes, in the following ones, and of course, in other seasons too. And next up, of course, is Hypno from Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. Now, this is going to be containing spoilers for the Savvy Islands portion of the remakes. So, at some point in your journey in these remakes, you of course encounter a guy known as Bill. And you of course do meet him again after you defeat the 7th gym, Blaine's gym. And you head to a group of islands called the Savvy Islands, and you're trying to help Cilio establish a link. Actually, no, my bad. Bill's trying to help his buddy Cilio establish a link from the Savvy Islands to the Kanto region. And of course, Bill, feeling bad, just decides to kind of send you off to go explore. Of course, you do have to get the meteorite, and, so you do have to find this little girl. And of course, the thing is that, well, she's missing. So you have to head all the way to Free Island, enter the Berry Forest after dealing with some bikers, and then of course you find the lost little girl, who does talk about a Pokemon scaring her. And that Pokemon is of course Hypno. Now, this is definitely freaky, but not as freaky when you really think about it. Yeah, it just seems that maybe the Hypno scared her. That's not until you read Fire Red and Pokemon X's Dex entry for Hypno, and it is of course talking about some stuff about the Pokemon. It's not in the exact same words, but it comes very close. It carries a pendulum-like device. There once was an incident where it took away a child it hypnotized. That alone is honestly really freaky, and it also really just kind of made Hypno the resident creepypasta in the community since then. With creepypastas like Hypno's Lullaby, and of course a fan ROM. But of course, it all started here, and I definitely would say that this is one of the more spookier moments within Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. Next up is, of course, the Sinnoh Darkrai event. This one was pretty interesting. So, back when Pokemon Diamond Pill released, there was a Darkrai event. And, of course, this brings you to New Moon Island. So, the background for this one is that, there's some bit of background for this one. There's this sailor in Canalave City, and his son is having nightmares, and you have to get this feather from Cresselia. So, the game already does let you know that, there's one Pokemon that does kind of grant good dreams. Then there's also a Pokemon that grants nightmares. That is, of course, Darkrai, and there's an event for Darkrai. You can, of course, get a ticket for this random house where you meet this mysterious guy, and you fall asleep in a bed, and you just wake up on New Moon Island. Now, obviously, it's kind of creepy falling asleep, like, right next to a random guy that you don't know, but what really does get creepy is just the fact that, you just kind of transport to this place, which, it's kind of creepy, but also with the fact that Darkrai grants nightmares. Now, there's a small plot line in Pokemon Black and White 2, and in Black and White, where you do get to learn more about Darkrai, and of course, Cresselia, and of course, this other ghost girl. That won't be talked about in this video, as that's something I want to discuss later. But this was definitely one of the creepier events in the series, because, other Pokemon events really went like this. And so it really made it stand out compared to other ones. Then, of course, next up, we of course have the Lumiose City Ghost Girl. Spoilers for X and Y. So, after restoring power to a Kalos power plant, you of course are able to enter from the north side of Lumiose City. Because before then, you weren't really able to enter that area because there was a blackout. I guess someone left the TV running all night, but, who's to know? But of course, and so once you start exploring the north side of Lumiose City, because, it's Pokemon, of course you're going to explore, you can suddenly just run into a random ghost girl, and she will just say, "No, you're not the one." It's been 12 years since X and Y came out, and we still do not know who that one is, making it one of the most unsolved mysteries in the series. It also gets even more interesting because supposedly she appears in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, as she does mention, I don't know. There's another Hex Maniac that you do find in X and Y or Alpha Sapphire or Omega Ruby that does mention that she wouldn't be able to hear the elevator. So a lot of people did think it's the same person or maybe someone else. But there's been a lot of theories surrounding the ghost girl, and none of them have been answered. Obviously, they probably will never be answered. And kind of hopefully not, because that's kind of a fun thing about Pokemon is that sometimes certain stuff just doesn't get answered. And it's also led to some really interesting creepypastas, and more of which I will probably cover at some other point. And of course, number one is, of course, Lavender Town. Is it a cop-out? Probably. I mean, it's Lavender Town. Everyone knows about Lavender Town. Everyone knows about Buried Alive, the Ghost Hand, the White Hand. Everyone knows about the Cubone. Everyone knows, like, how many, I don't even remember what word it was going to be, but everyone knows how many, kilobytes or megabytes Lavender Town is these days. But of course, I have to include Lavender Town as the number one pick because it was so unexpected. Back when people first played Pokemon Red and Blue, was it really ever going to be expected to run into something like Lavender Town? But yeah, it has to be Lavender Town. There's so much about Lavender Town that really just creeped people out. And it works extremely well. I mean, there's plenty of rumors surrounding Lavender Town, and even if you just ignore them, the town itself is honestly really unsettling. You have the ghost hand that could appear on your shoulder, as stated by one of the residents. You have the ghost that was haunting the tower. You know, you have all the other ghost type haunting the tower, and you just have the theme of death and gloom, not only in the town but in the OST. Lavender Town really set the tone for what creepiness in Pokemon was. And more than almost 30 years later, Lavender Town is still one of the most iconic places in any games, and arguably one of the creepiest places within Pokemon. You know? And so I think it's stuff like that that really made Lavender Town probably the creepiest place in Pokemon and the creepiest moment in Pokemon. Now, of course, to really close off this video, all in all, Pokemon has really creepy moments, and I really do enjoy that. The more I play these games, the more I appreciate them, and it's really fun to get to explore them. And of course, who knows, maybe we'll see more creepy, or maybe we'll see more creepy moments or areas in Pokemon Legends. I mean, who knows? Maybe the ghost girl will be answered. Maybe we'll get new mysteries. Time will obviously tell, but that's definitely the magic of the Pokemon series, is that it generally is a creepy series sometimes, and it's one I appreciate. And of course, that's all I really have for today's video. I will of course probably be doing a part 2 for this one, because there's other events in the series that I do want to talk about. And so, that's all I really have for today. But of course, thank you all for watching. It always means a lot that people do watch these videos. It's been fun getting to make them, and I'm glad that I'm finding a new audience every time I upload. It means a lot. And, well, I hope October is extremely great for everyone. See you all next time.